Long Beach is a city in Los Angeles County known for its large port and is the home of RMS Queen Mary, a retired luxury British cruise liner. I recently spent a few nights here for work. My favorite way to capture urban areas is during the blue hour. There's a short window where man-made lights are perfectly balanced against the dark blue sky. However, these can be challenging shots to get. In this video, I explain some of the challenge that comes with this type of shot and describe my multi-night search for some blue hour images of Long Beach. My first day in Long Beach, I went out with a coworker. Although I had my camera, I was primarily interested in doing some scouting and looking for locations that I could come back to. However, with that said, there were some really great views that you could find during golden hour and during sunset. In particular, I really liked the sky and the way that it was reflecting and the relatively smooth water in the Harbor Village area. There was also some interesting boats that were moored at the pier, which also made compelling subjects. However, I didn't really think that any of these particular vantage points would serve me well for blue hour images. For this reason, I waited around a little bit until it got dark and looked around for some locations that I thought would be good. I thought that this would be a good location. Now at this point, it's too late in the day. There's very little color left in the sky, and the man-made lights are significantly brighter than the sky, and it just really isn't the right time to be doing this type of shot. So I came back the next day so that I could try and get a nice shot from this location. My first initial attempts, I was shooting really wide, but I felt like there was really too much dead space in the water here and in the sky, even though the reflection in the water is kind of interesting. I next moved to a panoramic stitch so that I could kind of provide more of a focused image on these illuminated buildings here. However, particularly because of this boat, which I felt was distracting, and because it was bobbing up and down, it was blurry, I just didn't really like this composition and felt that this boat in particular was detracting from an image that I otherwise liked. By the time that I realized this, it was really too late to do much more. The best light was gone, but I kept walking around to see if I could find something I liked better. A few hundred feet away, I found a vantage point that I liked a lot more. It was fairly similar, except that there was a pretty good amount of space between this boat and this building here, which I kind of thought was the most interesting subject along these buildings here. It also showed a portion of the Queen Mary, which, being kind of a local iconic landmark, I thought would be kind of cool to include in the image. But at this point, really the best light was gone. It's interesting to compare just how 10 to 15 minutes can make such a big difference with a similar exposure. The color in the sky is gone, and the difference between the man-made lights and the sky, exposure-wise, is really stressing the dynamic range of the sensor. So I decided to come back one more night in order to get this shot. I set up my gear. I have this here just as kind of a reference. I was shooting a panoramic stitch, so I'm shooting in portrait mode, mounted in portrait on the tripod. I have a bubble level to help with keeping things level, and then this cord is a wired cable release, which I almost always use when shooting a tripod, and certainly these long exposure type shots. So I did a pretty large, maybe 50-degree sweep across the scene and merge them together. What I often do is shoot wider than I think I really want, just so that I have the luxury of later kind of fine-tuning the composition. What I actually went with was a pretty significant crop of that really wide panorama. I thought this provided a more focused image and only included what I thought was interesting and contributed to the story of this image. Again, I think it's interesting to compare images just taken, these are just taken about 30 minutes apart, and they're really a totally different look. And I include this partially to highlight why it can be difficult to find these types of shots ahead of time, because you really don't know what it's going to look like during blue hour until the man-made lights come on and the natural lights dim. I got one more blue hour shot in a close location to the previous one that I really liked of this lighthouse. And again, about 30 minutes before, it looks totally different. And predicting how these lights, particularly these ones here, which turned into really big stars during blue hour, and the way that they're going to reflect in the water, it's pretty hard to see that and imagine that beforehand, which makes this kind of shot difficult to really plan out and be ready during the optimal window to capture. Overall, I had a great time trying to capture these images. There are certainly a lot more great shots that can be found in Long Beach, and I recommend this city as a place for photography and touring in general. If you enjoyed this video, definitely check out my companion blog post, which you can find at danielwitten.com/blog. The blog post includes full-screen copies of some of the images in this video. If you like this video and want more, hit the subscribe button below and check out my blog for more content. If you have questions or feedback, I would love to hear from you in the comments.